Hey guys, welcome back. So after doing the previous video, I realized that not everybody may understand what I'm talking about when I say the word compiler. So it's you hear it all the time, used across all programming languages, pretty much. There are interpreted languages that work a little bit differently, but as a compiled language, C++ is going to use a compiler. So we all know that computers speak to each other, and internally everything is just a bunch of zeros and ones. That's a format called binary, and it's a way to represent numbers, uh, letters, words, really anything translated into just a series of zeros and ones. Now, you and I can't read it, but the computer, uh, that's its native language. That's what it understands deep down. And so what the compiler does is the compiler takes your written code and converts it into those zeros and ones in order for the computer to understand what it's looking at. So just to kind of give a 10,000 foot overview here, here's what happens. You have your code, whatever you've written here, and the compiler takes that code, reading the language, C++ or Java or whatever it may be, and converting it into what's called an object file. Now, the object file is just a bunch of zeros and ones. The object file, and you may have more than one depending on the classes and how complex your code can get, and you'll see that later on in the series. But the object file then is put through what's called a linker, and this is the part of the compiler that takes each of your object files and puts them together. It creates a connection between all of them, telling it which order it needs to pull which pieces. And each of your code will do something a little bit different. And out of the linker spits an executable. So in this series, when I refer to the compiler, generally I'm referring to this whole process right here. The compiler taking this, turning it into object files, spitting it into the linker, and then the linker putting out the executable. So we're usually referring to this whole process right here whenever I say I'm going to compile the code or pull up the compiler and run this. Later on, when we cover classes, I will show you how the object files can come out separately, and also some things that you can do as far as being a little more efficient when you go back in to edit your code. If you edit one part, you don't need to recompile everything, only the pieces that you've changed, and some more complicated stuff. But for now, this will help you get an idea of what I'm talking about here. So in the first video, I told you that this series, I'm going to try and cover a lot of the why. Why do we do these things? What's happening? Uh, so when it comes to the compiler and these pieces, the why for this, it really comes down to ease of use for the user. Um, again, the computer doesn't understand uh, when we say go do this, right? What it understands is zeros and ones. Uh, but it's kind of complicated and pretty cumbersome for us to just type a bunch of zeros and ones and tell the computer to do these different tasks. So that's where we created programming languages. We created these programming languages to give you, the user, the programmer, the ability to type something that's readable in English or your native language and have this interpreter between, called the compiler, to translate it for the computer to understand. Now, C++ is an object-oriented language, so it's a fairly high-level language. And when I say high level, this just means that it's pretty far separated from what the zeros and ones actually look at. There's a lot of stuff in between. Assembly language, for example, I'm sure most people have heard of that. This is much closer to the language that the computer understands, although it's still written in English and you have go to and if statements that are in there, still very rudimentary command statements that then are interpreted into zeros and ones for the computer to understand. So that's why we do this. It's for ease of use for the user to be able to write complex code and have it be able to convert into something that the computer can understand and ultimately execute for you. I may do a series eventually on binary and the representation of binary numbers if that's something people would be interested in. So let me know in the comments if that's something you guys would like to see, and maybe we could do that at a later date. Anyways, that's all I wanted to cover for this video. Thanks for checking in, and I'll see you guys next time.